Welcome to the show, where we discuss time-tested and science-supported tools for better health, long life, and pleasures.
Talk to me, so I will see you, is a famous phrase of a blind ancient Greek philosopher, Socrates. The power of our voice and its impact on our lives is greatly undervalued. When we speak, our voice delivers not only the words that we say, but lots of other information about us, like an importance of what we say, our emotions, confidence, gender, influences that we want to project, age, sexuality, etc. This information unconsciously gets passed through our hearing into our brain, which determines our action, whether we dismiss the message, act on it, like it, dislike it. Just by hearing the voice of a speaker, we automatically like or dislike that person, trust or distrust the message. Just think of it. It might surprise you, but the words that we say represent only 7% of what people really hear, while the tone of our voice represents 36%, and the rest 57% belong to the facial expression and our body language, which we'll explore in other episodes. So watch today's episode and discover how you can enhance the power of your voice. I'm Lilian Zeltzer, and for over 3 decades, I practiced, researched, and hunted for natural stimulants which can help to enhance our love life, I should say, health, and our ability to project certain messages to other people. And our guest today is Rachel Pietsch, who is a professional singer and a certified vocal and voice function specialist, and the managing director of the Now You Are Talking company that in the past 15 years has helped thousands of people to discover the power of their voice. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Hi, Lillian. Thank you so much for having me.
I understand that you are a successful professional singer. What made you go into voice coaching, and who are the people that resort to your help?
Well, that's a really big question, because there's so many answers that flood my mind as you asked me that. I've been singing since I was 12 years old, and it was in the church choir that I discovered that my real love for singing. And I learned how to sing harmonies in the alto section, and that was something that started to train my ear. And it wasn't until I was halfway through university studying to be a music teacher that I'd already been getting singing lessons by that stage. But my instrument of choice at that point of time was piano, and that was my major at university. And my singing teacher at the time said to me, "I'm going on a show. Here's a bunch of students that I'd like you to look after. I think you'll be fine." And I thought, I've never taught singing before. I hadn't thought about teaching singing. I was a piano teacher by that stage. And I thought, well, why not? And I started to teach them singing, and I was only 20 years old, and it was almost 30 years ago. And I really discovered that I liked it. And what I found was that not only did I really enjoy it, but I felt like it changed up, not just teaching piano, but I was also teaching singing, and, music was such a big part of my life. But I did find that I wasn't able to help every voice that I worked with, because I was very ill prepared to be a teacher of singing. So I was taking lessons myself, but at the end of the day, that didn't prepare me enough to teach singing. So it sent me down the track of finding the right kind of training to be the kind of teacher I am today. Yeah.
That's interesting. We all have our ways, in our lives that lead us to something that we do without actually planning it ahead. I agree that voice is very important part of our life, our social life. When we use our voice, it projects a lot more than just the message that we want to convey. And correct delivery of the message is more important than the message itself. Hear this. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Well, to what degree our voice can be trained to project exactly what we would like to say, and how much training will it take?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I think our voice is capable of so many different sounds, and you just demonstrated that beautifully. And it's driven by the emotion in the moment, and that comes through, and our voice reflects that. But not everyone has access to that or can find their voice to be able to express that. And it can leave people thinking, well, maybe that's not for me. I don't know how to express myself that way, so maybe that's not for me. But I question that, because my job is about helping people find their voice. And a lot of the time, a lot of people do not understand that they have the voice there. And this is what excites me about what I do, because of my training, which is voice function, I can listen to what parts of the voice are already being used and what parts aren't being used. And I can show people how to engage their voice properly in order to access all of these different sounds that we can create. And once you start doing that, all of these other sounds start to emerge. And you do have to embrace that sense of, I guess, being emotional, being expressive, but also being silly, not being afraid to create sound that might come across as childish even. And I think we're conditioned, from a society point of view, that as we get older, we have to behave ourselves and we have to talk a certain way. But I think we're slowly throwing that off. So I just see that there are a lot of voices out there that are very, very capable of this, but are lying very dormant, and they just need to be shown the way, or just reminded that they can actually make that expression. And once we discover that, then we start to train that as from like a habitual point of view. So when you're when you have your habitual speaking, you will have learned ways that you don't even think about. When you speak, your voice operates a certain way, and we call that habitual. And whatever contributes to that is another matter. But when we find our true voice, we can work beyond that. But the habit still needs to be laid down. So my training deals with helping people to form new habits, new neural pathways, to challenge the old way of speaking. And it does take time, because the brain has to be involved and there has to be, a lot of focus. It's like asking someone to write with their other hand or to walk differently. There's so much mental focus, because our bodies are designed to have body memory and will default back to what it remembers very easily. So it can be something that can be, it depends on what your voice brings to the table to begin with. It can be very easy for some people to find their voice and express their voice, and then go on to form that habit. But for other voices, it's not so easy. They have to keep finding their true voice time and time again, and go through the practice every single day to start training their voice in a different way. But the good news is, when you start that road, you notice a difference straight away. And that's what excites people and keeps people moving forward. But you do need to commit time to changing that habit.
Absolutely. Time and training and willingness. You need to want to change your life, your voice, to be heard better. But how do people identify symptoms? How do they know that they need training, that they need to pay attention more to their voice?
Yes, absolutely. people do need to pay attention, because
how would they know that they need help? Because, well, we speak since we learned how to speak. How do I know that I need help in that department?
Yes. Well, most people don't tend to think about voice training until a problem occurs, or until they're having to get up and speak in front of people. So I like to think that I'm part of my journey, or part of what I like to do, is to try and educate people that they can prevent that from happening. So there are signs to look out for that. Yes.
Oops. Are you still there?
Agrees. I guess you could say pathological issues, avoiding the pathological issues, and also and the other section is avoiding the fear of getting up in front of people. So in order to deal with to prevent the pathological issues from happening, look for signs that are like your voice gets tired at the end of the day. That's one sign. Another sign is, does your voice tend to want to start to live down here throughout the day? Is your voice starting to get croaky and deeper and lower? That says to me it's not sitting in its optimal pitch range, and it's starting to feel less buoyant, and it's not wanting to work and engage. It's feeling very weak. That's a telltale sign. Another telltale sign that you need to look at voice is not feeling that you can get as high in your expression anymore. So you might be previously you might have been able to say hi, whereas now it's more like a hi, and it's a bit of a strangle, or it's a little bit of a catch in your throat, and you're noticing that more and more. That doesn't speak to something pathological necessarily. It just means that your habits are starting to now limit that free expression in your voice, and our voices need that kind of expression in order to convey what we want to say, and also to create interest so that we can engage whoever we're speaking to. So if we settle for just down here and keep it down here, we're going to lose our audience quite quickly. So they kind of speak to the pathological issues. In terms of the getting up in front of people, signs that voice training can help is looking at how you feel in front of people when you speak. Does your voice change? Does it start to become a little bit thin? Does it start to become a little bit wobbly and shaky? Or does your breathing start to get really, really high, and all of a sudden you're gulping for air? They're telltale signs that voice training can help to settle all that down and give you the ability to stay in control of that moment.
Right. That's interesting. What is an actionable do-it-yourself tip or solution that you can share today with our audience to help them use the power of their voice, or have a text of how it can change to their benefit in real life situations like socializing, career, love life, attracting somebody, relationships, or experiencing more pleasure and happiness?
Yes, I'd love to share a tip actually, because something that I get a lot of people to do just to engage their voice properly, because that's the first step, learning to engage your voice properly. And I can go into a whole heap of biology here, but I won't. But often I get people to hum, but in a way that just engages the voice. It doesn't engage any of the throat muscles, and it goes like this, like you're describing something yummy. And you might hear the creakiness in that sound, and the creak is what's actually holding my voice together. And this is what we want to avoid. We want to avoid a squeeze. So this is what a squeeze sounds like. Like I'm lifting something heavy at the same time. We've got to let all that go and just let that just let the creak be there.
Let me try.
Do you want to give it a go? Yeah.
That is amazing. It actually helps. I can
yes
cracking sound. Yes, absolutely. That alerted me.
Yeah.
There's one question that you should have asked you that will help. What question you can ask audience that would help them to address this challenge?
So what question should I ask?
You can ask why people would want to come to you.
Okay. Yes. So along the lines of, if you're wanting to raise your professional profile and if you're wanting to engage your audience more, then yeah, seek out voice training, because people will give you advice on, you should vary your tone or you should speak louder. But what often happens is when people do that, they engage what's called extrinsic muscles, so throat muscles, the false vocal cords that sit above the vocal cords. So that little exercise that little tip that I gave you about engaging your voice, that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of engaging your voice properly. Because when we just go from an habitual way of speaking and then just suddenly try and speak louder, try and project, try and vary our tone and do all these different things, we're most likely, and I've never seen it any other way, people will tend to grab hold of every other muscle around here and the false vocal cords and try and push and squeeze. So it's the one distinguishing factor that I say to people. It's not as simple as that, because you will wear out your voice and you will create even more fatigue and strain just by suddenly changing your voice. So yeah, the voice has to be properly trained in order to be able to withstand all of those extra expressions and pressure. So yeah.
Can you give us a short master demo of projecting different moods by singing a little tune differently?
Yes, I can. So I think everyone knows the song Amazing Grace. So I'll just sing a few lines from that. So most people, when they sing, and I'll actually make this point before I sing it, a lot of people, when they try to be more delicate in their speaking, they will disengage their voice and get quite whispery, which is not a bad thing when you're trying to make that point. But if that is what your voice does as a default every time you speak softly, then that's an issue, because we're disengaging the voice. Those extrinsic muscles are still going to kick in. So most people would tend to sing, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, which sounds really, really pretty. But if that is all that voice is capable of, then that's going to take its toll for sure. So we need to learn to engage the voice a little bit more. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. So there I'm sort of singing softly. I'm not projecting, but my vocal cords are actually together. And then, when you want to get a little bit more emotional, as your voice gets stronger, you can get more into that amazing grace, how sweet the sound. And you can start to bring more to what you're doing. So it gives you so much light and shade. And so we're not talking about, just different expressions here. We're talking about sounds that the voice can make that have different levels of intensity, and people respond to that differently. So if I was to put that in a speaking way, we can actually, vary that up a little bit. We can go, amazing grace, how sweet the sound. And that way our voice becomes more of a storytelling experience. I would never tell someone to get up on stage and do what I just did. It's more of an exercise. But you can also, carry that into your singing as well. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. So you can work in and out. So being able to control that is actually really, really important in voice training. And just from your point of view, how did you find yourself responding to that? All of those different lights and shades.
Oh, it's difficult not to respond to your voice. Your voice. And when you convey your message, you definitely use the power of your voice. And there is an old curse that says, many people who you deal with never correctly understand what you want to say.
Yeah.
regardless
Exactly.
of how low or high is your pitch and how busy you are in your life, it is definitely worth training your voice to be able to project your message correctly. And on behalf of our viewers and myself, I would like to wish you, Rachel, great success in your singing career and in voice coaching career. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing your experience with us.
Thanks, Lillian. An absolute pleasure.
I hope to see you on our show.
Thank you so much. Been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you won't miss any of the new episodes. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please put them below the video. I do read them. If you are looking for a good, reliable source of specific ingredients, experts, services, or products, click on the resources link under this video. To health, long life, and pleasures.